My name is Ray Mercer, and I am a 20-year veteran of The Lion King on Broadway. And I'm also simultaneously, I've had a dual career where I'm also a choreographer. I'm also a freelance choreographer based here in New York. Little bit about myself. I'm from Omaha, Nebraska, from the Midwest. I was born and raised. I was originally supposed to be a gymnast. I had a gymnastics career in junior high and high school, and I had my very first dance class when I was 17 years old. And it was that one dance class that, I kind of fell in love. Not kind of, I did. I fell in love with dance. I went to college down in New Orleans, trained down there for a little bit. Eventually danced with a few companies and ended up in Chicago. I auditioned for The Lion King in 2003, and I've been with The Lion King ever since for about 20 years now.
Which is amazing achievement in itself. But then going back to 2003, what kind of first drew you to The Lion King?
I guess the Broadway show had been running probably about 5 years, by then. So everybody knew the phenomenon, what Julie Taymor had created was this magical piece. And so everybody knew about it. And so I think that one of the major things that drew me to Lion King was the fact that there were people on stage that looked like me, you know what I mean? And that, I think that is so important, especially for young artists, that they see themselves on stage when it comes to art. So I think that was probably the first thing that drew me to it. But also the story itself, everybody knew they had seen the film before. It's a great story. And to see it transform to the stage in such a magical and unique way was one of the reasons why I wanted to audition for it.
And as you kind of touched on there, the show's coming up to its 25th birthday itself now, and you kind of just alluded to it. But what do you think kind of the lasting appeal of the story is?
You know what? I think that it's the famous connection, how I just really think that everybody, it's so strange that probably everybody on this planet has seen the show, and it's something about the way it's structured and the way it's set up that it draws audience, no matter who you are, young or old. It's the story itself that kind of draws you to, its magic. And the way Julie Taymor sets up with the puppets and the lighting and the costume design, it is just, there is no other Broadway show like Lion King.
And as you say, 20-year veteran that you are, what kind of then made you want to stay that long with the show?
I get this question a lot. So I guess after 20 years, you will get this question a lot. It's two things for me. It's two things. The first one being the audiences. I was talking to someone, a few weeks ago, and this person came to the stage door, and she had a playbill that I had signed over 18 years ago, and she was a grown woman with a family now. And it was it's so that I think it's an testament to how it affects generations and generations. And, and when I'm on stage and you see grown men crying and how the show affects people is probably one of the main inspirations for me. The second one is probably the cast and crew. It really, I know it's kind of cliche to say this, but, it's really like a family. You know what I mean? The people that you spent a majority of your life with, you see them get married and have kids, and so it's probably the audiences and also the cast and crew that I work with. They're some of the best in the world.
And obviously the show opens with the iconic Circle of Life and all that happens with the animals and everything. But I hear you're the 14-foot giraffe.
Yeah.
How long did that kind of take to master, and kind of what's the challenges with that?
You know what? it's my favorite puppet, of course. It's my puppet. I nicknamed him from day one. His name is Gus, and and it's a challenging puppet because you're on stilts. You don't have access to your hands and feet, and I think because of my gymnastics background, it really kind of helped with the balance and the core strength. So, needless to say, it is my favorite Giraffe. It took a little while. I mean, it took. I remember the first day. It felt kind of strange trying to maneuver the walking and things. But after I got a hang on it, it's just, it's like walking to me now. After 20 years, it's. I don't even think about it anymore. You want to know a funny story?
Oh yeah, of course.
It was probably I had been in the show probably about, I don't know, 3 years, and it was my birthday. And I hopped on the Giraffe, and we walk on that diagonal from stage left to right. And I got halfway through the stage, and I started to slip. And I knew that nothing good was going to happen from there. And I took another step, and down I went. And in that Giraffe, because you're locked in, there's no way you can get out of it on stage. So stage hands had to come on stage and grab me by my legs and drag me off the stage. It was probably one of the most horrific and funny things that has happened in my Broadway career.
Yes, good job they can't have phones in shows, because
Yes, 1,700 people saw me go down.
Well, there you go. It's a moment that people remember. But also in the show, you're the fight captain as well. For people who don't know, what does that entail?
Fight captain. I'm in charge of maintaining all the fight scenes that are in the show. The fight scenes between Scar and Simba. Mostly that's the sword fighting, and they have the foil where they're on the Pride Rock. So it's all the fight scenes that happen in the show. I'm kind of in charge of making sure, number one, that it's safe, and number two, that it's executed the way it was originally planned.
What led you to taking on that role?
I don't know. I thought it was so exciting, and I had been in the show probably about 5 years, and they approached me and they said, "Ray, would this be something that you'd be interested into?" And I said yes. And it is kind of exciting. It adds to a different element of my day-to-day, routine as being one of the dancers. It helps, keep the maintenance of the show.
Yeah. And again, kind of alluded to it, but obviously the show kind of features largely people of color, kind of that kind of background. And like you say, that kind of inspired you to want to be a part of it. But kind of how important do you think that's been in the kind of general role in Broadway and the kind of legacy that go forwards?
You know what? I think, especially now more than ever, that it's so. I feel it now, especially I just feel it, period. But it's so important as an African American or anybody of color that we represent what the world looks like. You know what I mean? That that we see ourselves on stage, especially for young artists who are aspiring to be Broadway entertainers or just want to go see themselves being entertained on a Broadway stage. I think it's so crucial. If I always tell this story, my very first trip to New York, I was a young kid, and I saw the Tap Dance Kid. And I remember sitting in the audience wondering, wow, that it gave me so much possibility that, that could be me. And I saw it in the Minskoff Theater. And then fast forward all these years later, I am on that same stage that I saw my very first Broadway show on. So it's stories like that that are so impactful and so important. And those stories can happen if we don't see ourselves on stage.
Yes, I wholeheartedly agree. But this is probably a difficult one to answer when you've been in it for so long. But away from the Giraffe Fall and kind of, I know you'd probably say every performance is special, but do you have kind of any highlights from your time with the show to date?
Highlights. It is hard after all these years. they come and go. I was on stage warming up a couple of days ago, and I thought, wow, I've seen a 5-year anniversary. I've seen a 10-year anniversary. I've seen a 15-year anniversary. I've seen a 20. And here I am looking at a 25-year anniversary of a show that is been around, and not only been around, but one of the top selling shows in Broadway history. And I couldn't imagine that from a bad little boy from Omaha, Nebraska, ending up on Broadway. So I think the highlight, and will continue to be the highlight for me, is the fact that I am surrounded by brilliant artists, who are doing brilliant things. And because I'm a choreographer, I have access to so much just within that theater, musicians and composers and dancers and costume designers and carpenters, whereas most choreographers don't have access to all that. I have all that in the building. So, I guess the highlight for me is being surrounded by so many talented people.
Yeah, and again, you kind of alluded to it, but you've got my next question here. That kind of, obviously, as a choreographer yourself, alongside working in the show, kind of how rewarding is that for you then to give back to the kind of next generation of dancers, performers?
Such a great question, and I'm glad you asked it. It's a choice that I made early on, that I would have this dual career, and I say all the time that both of them are very important to me, and I treat them equally. So it does come with the sacrifices. I don't have a social life. I'll be the first to admit it, but enjoying the fact that I am able to perform still, and also have this career as a choreographer. I've choreographed around the world. I've been the resident choreographer for the Ailey School. So it's those opportunities that, really, I can't tell you how blessed I am to be able to do both, because most people can't. They're either performing or they choose to choreograph or direct or whatever. But I am just extremely blessed to have access to be able to do both.
And I suppose that's kind of obviously it's Disney kind of allowing you to do both as well. But obviously sometimes you can get a contract where you kind of can't do these other things. So that's amazing. It
is. I've built a great relationship with Disney, and so with that great relationships, they have allowed me to be the choreographer that I am.
And as a big Disney fan myself, you can't pick Lion King here because that'd be too obvious, but do you have a favorite other Disney film?
Yeah. Okay, so listen, I'm trying to think if there is, it would be, okay. I don't think anybody ever asked me this before, but it would kind of be a toss-up for me between Beauty and the Beast and Little Mermaid.
Yeah.
I'm excited. I'm excited to see the new Little Mermaid come out. So those would probably be the two for me. Probably Beauty and the Beast and Little Mermaid.
Strong choices. Mine's Hunchback of Notre Dame. Not that anyone asked, but
yeah. What are yours?
Hunchback of Notre Dame is probably my number one Disney.
Oh yeah, that's a beautiful story too. Yeah. Beautiful story.
It's not made it to the stage over here yet. Which
I know they're still trying though.
Fingers crossed.
Yeah, I would love to choreograph that.
Well, there you go. There we go. We'll get on that. But then, kind of, you've alluded to this one again. You've beaten all my questions here, to be fair. But what would been the first piece of theatre you saw that then inspired you to get into performing?
Yeah, and like that my very first. Well, not my very first. I remember being in grade school. In third grade, and probably still one of my favorite shows. Every Wednesday, how they have Wednesday matinees, they would bring school performances in. Oh, yeah. And I was in third grade, and Mrs. Shear was her name. And she took us to see at one of the regional theaters, we went to go see Fiddler on the Roof. And that was my very, very first introduction to musical theater, and still probably one of my favorite musicals, to date. But I saw Fiddler on the Roof was my very first show that I ever saw. And like I said, the Tap Dance Kid was one that affected me forever because I was able to see people that looked like me on stage.
And was it then always kind of, I know you said you were going to be a gymnast and were a gymnast. Was it always kind of, where did dance kind of come into your life?
You know, it kind of just, it happened by accident. I was a gymnast, I was tumbling, and I was on my way to the Olympics. I knew that was going to happen for me. And a friend of mine introduced me to, she said, well, let's go take a dance class. You know, you have all this flexibility and all this strength. You know, it makes sense. Why don't you try a dance class? And I went into a ballet class, and it single-handed. I remember walking into that class, and it was they were little kids in pink tights. And here I was, this almost grown man in this class with all these little kids, but still, for some reason, I was drawn to dance. And the lady that was running the studio at the time told me that if I was serious, that she would give me classes for free. So I took advantage of that. And because of that opportunity, it changed my life forever.
Oh, you're a pre-Billy Elliot. That's what you are.
Yeah, I know, right? Right, Elliot.
There you go. I ask everyone this when I interview them. Simply, what does theatre mean to you?
You know, such a good question. You know, I think that theater is a place for me, is an escapism. You know, a place where you can escape for a little while, for 2.5 hours, and enjoy. And whether you're on the stage, you can be somebody that you would never imagine yourself to ever be, or as an audience member, to take in something that for 3.5 hours that potentially could change your life forever, like The Lion King. So I think that it's a beautiful form of escapism.
And for anyone out there who wants to follow your work or anything, where can they find you other than The Lion King?
Yes, come to The Lion King.
Yeah, come to The Lion.
But on my IG page, I have an IG page, Ray Mercer 5678. You can follow me there.
Amazing. And my last one, for anyone who's not seen The Lion King at this stage, of them, there's not many, but why should everyone come out and check it out?
It's, you know, there's a poster outside the theater, and I pass by it every day, and it says, there's nothing like it. There's nothing like it. And for somebody, if you haven't seen it yet, I would encourage you to try and come to see The Lion King, because it's one of those shows that will change your life and perspective forever. You know, it's such a magical, beautiful, I always say that it's visually intoxicating. You know, it's so much to look at and so much to enjoy. So if you haven't seen it, you need to come out and enjoy The Lion King.
I fully agree. I'm going to ask another question actually now, but how long do you kind of plan then to hopefully stay with the show? Or is it just open-ended?
Oh, shit. I don't know. I never would have thought I would have been here for 20 years. And because I don't know, I'm going to just leave it open. You know, it could be tomorrow for all I know. And then what if I go another 5 years? I really don't know. I always say that I'm going to keep doing it as long as my body holds up, number one. And number two, as long as I still enjoy it.
Yeah.
The minute I stop enjoying it, I'm going to remove myself.
Well, that brilliantly captures everything. So if anyone wants to come check out The Lion King, it's at the Minskoff Theatre on Broadway, open-ended run. So head on down. The 25th anniversary, I think it's the 13th of November.
Yeah, 13th.
So it's a good time to come and see it now.